somebody opens the door for you, and then who at the end of your life can you look back and rightfully say you opened the door for? I can't pay Robert Greene, who was my mentor, back. Not that it was a solely one-sided exchange. I feel like I did my best and I think I helped him on things, but like there's nothing I can do for him. All I can do is pay that debt forward. That's to me what the chain of sort of mentorship and coaching and door opening obligates.
And that's how we as a whole like grow and stay good and stay connected and evolve, right?
If this is all about you and like the amount of success or money or recognition that you're piling up, I think it gets like empty and not that fulfilling pretty quickly.
We live in a complex and ever-changing world, a place that is maybe harder than ever to successfully navigate. The answer is surely to be brave, but it's also to seek and be open to guidance. Mentors are the one consistent through line in the lives of all accomplished people, myself included. So welcome to Mentor Buffet, a feast for those, like me, curious about who helped the most successful among us succeed. My guest today is a friend and mentor, Ryan Holiday. When I first met Ryan, I thought that he was someone who only learned by reading books. In our conversation today, I learned about Ryan's journey, how he discovered the Stoics, and what about them feels inspiring to him. So we go through his mentors like Marcus Aurelius, but also talk about his new book, Wisdom Takes Work, where we talk about people like Joan Didion. What I loved is that the conversation really brought wisdom into the present for me, and I know that this is going to be super helpful for you. Here's my conversation with Ryan Holiday.
So I was in college and someone gave me a copy of one of the Stoics or told me to read it, and I did. And I was like, what is this? This has like been what I wanted my whole life. You know, when you read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, the incredible thing about it is you have the most powerful man in the world writing notes to himself, but not in any kind of like performative way. Like as far as we know, it was never intended for publication. So something very raw and real about it. And in fact, you know, when I first heard your title, you know, like Mentor Buffet, what I was thinking of is the first book of Meditations. Do you know why? Have you ever read it?
Yeah, and
it's a mentor buffet.
Like, yeah, it's just like it just has it has it all there for you.
Yes, and it's even more remarkable if you take it that he wasn't writing for publication. Like, why would someone take the time? Like, what is the purpose of the dedication of a book? It's like usually so like that person will read it and feel gratitude that you are expressing gratitude, right? Like they'll feel seen that, you know, like to my loving and patient parents who whatever, or to my spouse or to my 3 kids or, you know, whatever. That's what people do in the dedications of books. But to think that, again, the Emperor of Rome is writing, it's about 10% of the book, just every little thing that he felt like he took from the most influential people in his lives.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing where it came full circle for me is that he thanks his philosophy teacher, Rusticus. He says, and thanks to Rusticus for loaning me his copy of Epictetus from his own library. And then I went, oh, like 2,000 years ago, somebody gave the future Emperor of Rome a copy of Epictetus and said like, hey, this worked for me. I think you might like it. Yeah. And then here I am, somebody told me to read this guy and the timelessness of that, the like, hey, like I can see kind of where you are. Like these are the 10 books you should read or like these are the 10 videos you should watch. Just like the timelessness of that. I think that's a beautiful thing. And again, people tend to think of mentors as this like, you know, we talk twice a week and we go on these trips. If somebody gives you a book and that book changes the course of your life, they might be the single most influential mentor of your life. And then the person that you read that you never even met
Yeah.
is like a secondary mentor.
Who didn't even write it so that you would read it.
Yes.
Which is even more
With the Stoics,
interesting.
yes, totally.
Right? The intention was never to force the information on anyone else. It was to just account for the information and be honest or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've talked about two things today that are cool about that. Or one, that you don't necessarily write so that somebody is taught. Like you're not like, I'm a mentor, I will write this. And also that earlier thing about sometimes you're a mentor because you identify potential in somebody else. And that is like a thing you don't often talk about with mentorship either, is like the opening of a door.
Well, that's Marcus Aurelius, right? So I think people tend to think because, most kingships then and now are hereditary, right? Mm-hmm. They go, oh, so his father was emperor, right? And that wasn't how it was in the Roman Empire. Not always. Because infant mortality was so high, many of the emperors didn't have heirs. And in fact, there was 5 Roman emperors in a row, 4 in a row, if Marcus is the 5th, that don't have one. And so in Rome, it was very common to adopt someone when they were older to be the heir to your fortune or your business or your the family name. And so Marcus Aurelius is just this kind of promising kid. And Hadrian, who's the aging emperor who doesn't have a male heir, actually probably gay, has a number of sort of botched succession plans, but he sees something in this kid. And he nicknames Marcus Verismus, which means the truthful one. He was probably something like the kid in the emperor's new clothes. Like this kid is telling the emperor the truth. He's sort of in the court, as he comes from a prominent Roman family. And so Hadrian sees something in this kid, exactly what we're talking about. And he sees something so promising in this kid that he wants to make him emperor, but he knows that doesn't tend to turn out well for people. Just a few generations earlier, Nero had been, a promising young man who goes terribly astray. So what Hadrian does is he adopts the most prominent and respected senator in Rome, a guy named Antoninus, on the condition that he adopt Marcus Aurelius. And so he sets in motion this plan that grooms Marcus to become king. And Hadrian probably thinks that that Antoninus will live for like a few years. But he lives for like 2 decades. He's the emperor for 2 decades. And they end up ruling as co-emperors for a time. And then eventually Marcus takes over. And I think that idea of like he sees something so far, he sees the potential of this person so far off in the future, and he sets in motion this kind of chain of mentors is like really a beautiful thing. And the interesting question to me is like, how did he know not just that Marcus had potential, but that Antoninus could get that potential out of him?
And protect him from, like, you think about, I can't help but think about athletes, right? Yeah. Of peaking too early or having overtraining, of like trying to help him come into power at the right time or in the right, in a healthy way.
But thinking of athletes, how often does the starting quarterback, like Brett Favre famously goes, "It's not my job to train my replacement." Right. And he's like, I'm not going to mentor Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's not my job. My job is to. So the idea that Antoninus sees it as his, like, that Antoninus doesn't wait till Hadrian dies and then murder Marcus Aurelius is the exception to like all stories of palace intrigue.
Right. Which is kind of feels like that virtuousness, right? Of like, there's a bigger purpose that we all have and a responsibility and a connectedness that gives us, it's the North Star above it all. Yes. And it's like above the self as, the only thing that's important or the most important thing. Yes. And maybe that's a really good thing to talk about with regards to mentorship, that like it has to have an altruism to it, or it's not as good as it could be, really, right?
Well, just that he gets it right twice.
Oh, you're like, okay, you're obsessed with like you're
just the
with
talent
like
recognition is impressive, but but so how does he know, right?
Oh.
And I tell the story in
how does he know?
Right Thing Right Now. One of the stories we get is that Hadrian is in Rome one day, and he can see Antoninus, but Antoninus can't see him. And he watches Antoninus help his elderly stepfather or father-in-law up a flight of stairs. Like, he just watches this gesture of compassion and patience from what was then like one of the most powerful politicians in Rome. And the Roman, there's a in the Aeneid, there's a famous story about the sort of Aeneas fleeing fleeing the destruction of Troy, and he's carrying his elderly father, and this is like a famous image in Rome, like helping the older generation, the young helping the old, and I suspect that he saw in that moment like everything he needed to know about Antoninus's character. But I think you're right. The altruism there is, here he mentors for 20 years his successor, who he has no blood relation to. Like, the reason they create these dynastic chains is for blood to be thicker than, they know blood will be thicker than water, and that people won't try to stab someone in the back potentially that they're related to, that it creates this kind of loyalty. And so here you have this chain of 3 people who are not related, all like not just willing to teach, but then also willing to learn. Like, as remarkable as it is that Antoninus doesn't kill Marcus Aurelius, it's actually much more remarkable, if you know anything about ancient history or kings and princes, that Marcus doesn't kill Antoninus, because the second that Antoninus dies, he becomes the most powerful person in the world.
Yeah. So what do you think we can learn from them? Because clearly your adoration for them goes beyond their wisdom.
Yeah.
They've earned your heart, and now you'll listen to what they are doing and what they have to say.
Well, I just think like we are our coaching trees. Like, who comes up under you? Like, who's somebody opens the door for you, and then who at the end of your life can you look back and rightfully say you opened the door for?
You're saying that is important? Like,
that's the whole game.
That's what it is.
That's what it's about. Like, I can't pay Robert Greene, who is my mentor, back. Like, there's nothing, not that it was a solely one-sided exchange, and he got, I feel like I did my best, and I think I helped him on things, but like, there's nothing I can do for him. All I can do is pay that debt forward. That's, to me, what the chain of sort of mentorship and coaching and door opening obligates.
Yeah.
Is like, you have to do that for someone else now.
And that's how we as a whole like grow and stay good and stay connected and evolve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps it interesting. Like, if this is all about you and like the amount of success or money or recognition that you're piling up, I think it gets like empty and not that fulfilling pretty quickly.
Today, I want to share with you about my new favorite Merrell shoe, the Hut Mach 2 Slide Cozy, which are my go-to for fall and winter. I love these shoes especially for walking my dog Bernini because they're warm, they have grip on the bottom, and I can slide into them really quickly and then run out the door as I chase her down the street, which often happens. They're warm, and you can wear them with socks, but you don't have to because they have cozy inside them. And my favorite thing to wear them with are sweatpants. These shoes are also good for the grocery store, getting your mail, and even wearing inside sometimes. I recommend getting a pair for your partner though, because they're probably gonna steal yours. Merry Christmas! For over 40 years, Merrell has been a global leader in hike. For a limited time, we're partnering with Merrell to give you an exclusive offer of 25% off your first purchase using code MentorBuffet25 when you check out on Merrell.com.
I guess maybe a second research assistant, sold like his first book like about a year and a half ago. And that
awesome.
like at this point, like when I sell a book, it's not that exciting to me. Like, this is what I do, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I should do that. That's
Right,
what I
right.
do. That was like incredible. How cool was that? You know? And then you're like, okay, this is like, first off, then you get a recognition of like, oh, that's what they must have felt. Right. And then also you go, oh, this is much more meaningful to me than I thought it would be.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing of feeling an experience that you had from the other perspective. I'm sure it's like similar with parenting, where there's like a human experience about that exact thing when you are on the other side of the seesaw or whatever. And you can only get that by participating, you know?
Yeah. Like Gregg Popovich is one of the winningest coaches of all time. But it is indisputable. Like there's some debate who's the best NBA coach of all time, right? Maybe it's Popovich, maybe it's Phil Jackson. There's a long list, but it is like indisputable that he has the best coaching tree of all time. Like someone once said, it's not even fair to call it a coaching tree. It's like a coaching forest.
Wow.
Because those people have their own coaching trees at this point.
Right.
You know, one year, 2 coaches that he had trained and had worked for him were playing each other in the NBA finals. Like how beautiful
really
is that?
Cool. It exists in the running world too, which is not as famous of a world. But yeah, there's these lineages and they're basically like philosophies and traditions that are like slightly adapted. And then, yeah, they have their teams and it is really cool because they are schools of thought.
Yeah.
You know, and their processes, like they're not replicating exact stuff. They're replicating, it's a way of thinking about the sport that people follow. It's a training philosophy essentially.
Yeah. And like what I've always admired about Popovich's coaching tree is that it's not all dudes who look like Gregg Popovich or coach like Gregg Popovich. So it's like Steve Kerr and it's also Becky Hammon. Like his crossed over from the NBA into the WNBA, which is now she was the first female assistant coach in the NBA, and now she's like the dominant WNBA coach. She'll probably be the first female NBA head coach. She was the first to coach an NBA game because he got himself tossed one time on purpose. So she could do it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's also like, is your coaching tree just creating replicas of yourself? Right.
Your take on it is really like you should be making it your own, right?
Yes.
And you should be adding your own, like you have an imprint on it. And that must be huge for you in like Stoics, right? You're not trying to get people to just be them, right? You're trying to help people make it their own.
Well, what I mean though also is like you shouldn't just be looking as you become successful. You shouldn't just be like, oh, that person reminds me of me. I'm going to help them. It should be like that person has something. I'm going to help them be that thing. And you learn that as a parent for sure, because sometimes you have a kid that's exactly like you and your job is just to be like, here's what I learned, you know, like here's a head start. But my kids are very, very different than me.
Wow.
And that's like a challenge. But my job is not to, through force and authority, make them like me.
Right.
It's to make them like them, like the best version of them. And I definitely have some feelings about that given my own childhood that I wasn't really like my parents. And so I think that was extremely hard for them. And then by extension, that was super hard for me because like it was clearly difficult for them to have someone that they didn't understand or didn't fit, you know? And like, I think your job is to help people become what they're meant to become and not to just drag them along where you want them to go.
Do you feel like, at least when you talk about whatever, kids or anyone, do you feel like people discover their self or create the self? Like if as a question to follow that thought.
I think it's both, right? I do think there's something about callings, you know, that's a confluence of your circumstances and your genetic gifts and the moment in time and what's happening in the world. It's all these things that there is something that I don't think you have so much of a choice about. But then you obviously have the choice after that, like whether you're going to do it or not. There's this Greek concept called a daemon. And like it's, I'm telling you this, you know about this.
Tell our people.
Yeah, but you have like this sort of guiding spirit, this voice that's like, so I do think there is something kind of, this is where one of the few areas that I think I'm kind of like woo-woo and, you know, like spiritual or whatever. I do think there's something kind of like, where does it come from? Who knows?
Yeah.
At the same time, where the agency and the choice comes in is like, what do you choose to do with it? Because a lot of people, I mean, think about the hero's journey, right? What, like the second step in the hero's journey is the refusal of the call.
Yeah.
So it ends right there for probably most people.
Because they won't keep going. Yeah.
You know?
How do you respond to that?
Well, I just think there's something special. Like I think that to me is a sacrilege.
Yeah, to refuse it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you have to lean in.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to people are so afraid because they haven't done it before, which is one of the things, or they're afraid they'll fail at it.
Yeah.
Or I mean, there's a million or their parents or it's hard. Yeah. Right. It's like, and it's almost like by talking about it makes it not so offensive when it comes too, which is another thing that I think is so powerful about you as a person, is you've put a lot of words to processes that can make us a lot less offended when we go through kind of a natural or a repeated pattern that is unique to us, but there's a kind of history of it like that. It can help to just expect things.
I was thinking recently, it's like you don't necessarily get to pick what you're good at, but you do get to pick how good you're going to be at it.
Oh, I like that.
So it's like, we kind of have these dispositions or these callings or these circumstances that put us, you know, it's running or it's writing or it's music or it's entrepreneurship or it's nursing. I was fascinated with the story of Florence Nightingale. Like, she's born to this wealthy British family. And so the expectation is literally nothing. Like, it's offensive to her family that she wants to do something. And then when, you know, in Victorian England, the idea of like a woman working in hospitals with sick, poor people and soldiers, they were like, we'd rather you just, like, you might as well be a prostitute. Like, this is like the worst thing you could possibly choose to do. Nursing is for nuns who have no medical training. They're just like, help people die. That's what, and she has this sense like that not only is she meant to do it, but there's like something to be done there. And so she gets this call. She hears it like in a voice, literally. And then she ignores it. She like tries to get encouragement, and everyone's like she doesn't do anything about it for 8 years. And then she gets the call again, you know, this voice, and asks around again and like gets shut down. Like so she ignores it for 16 years. And then finally the voice comes louder. And this is what I mean about like, sometimes the voice is nice and sometimes it's not. The last time she hears it, it's, are you going to let what other people think hold you back from my service? She thinks this is like directly God going like, you're going to let, like, I am God and I'm telling you that you are called to be a nurse. And you're saying no because your parents think it's gross, basically. And then she sort of steps onto the playing field, so to speak, and saves literally millions of lives. Like, more people would die in hospitals than on the battlefield because that's how bad and rudimentary medical care was. And like the reform she's able to put in place like seems so basic to us now, but like they were like, you know, if you open a window, like sick people don't get each other sick and then they recover. If you put them on clean beds, they don't get other diseases and die. So you have this call, and sometimes it's a fun one. Sometimes it's socially acceptable. And sometimes it's seen as crazy. And you get disowned by your parents. Like, it can run a full spectrum. Sometimes it's incredibly lucrative. You know, somebody gets called to I want to be the best investor in the world. Well, that's one that society is like, we'd love to have you. That's awesome.
Right.
And then, for someone else, it's like, I want to do this obscure, weird form of music that no one understands until they understand it. Mm-hmm. Or it's like, I want to, you know who Catalin Carrico is? Mm-mm. She was a Hungarian immigrant who was a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. And she had this idea that there was something in mRNA research that would be valuable in like vaccines. Like before this was a concept that would work. And she basically toiled away in the bowels of academia for 30 years. Her husband managed an apartment complex. That's like actually how they made ends meet. She never made more than 60 grand a year. She never got tenure. She was constantly like, her boss would leave and then she'd have to reapply for it. It was like this humiliating sort of thing over and over and over again. And I just read about this and I talked to her a couple, maybe a year ago, and I found out she'd actually read the Stoics like at some point along this, which was so lovely. But she just believed in this thing. Like she was like, this is what I'm called to do. I believe there's something here. And then 2020 happens and suddenly people care about mRNA research, and she invents this vaccine that saves literally hundreds of millions of lives. She wins the Nobel Prize for it. But like only after 3 decades of everyone telling her that her calling was not important.
I think I'm supposed to drink this every 5 minutes. I think I'm supposed to drink this. Wait, okay. Oh. I think I'm supposed to drink this Go Brewing Sour every 5 minutes from Go Brewing. Sorry, you guys know that these are ad reads, but I don't know what this one means. I am drinking this for real. Okay, there. Oh, no, you don't want me to giggle fest. Wait. I'm not even drunk. This is not alcoholic. I just love this stuff. I'm not kidding. I love it. So go to gobrewing.com/Alexi for 15% off your order. Go.
It's funny. So there's one of Seneca's letters, and he's writing, and he's saying, like, how do I know this thing's working? He's like, how do I know? He's writing to his friend Lucilius. He's like, how will you know? How do I know that the philosophy is working? And he says, I know it's working because I've become a better friend to myself. And I don't think that's what people think of when they think of Stoicism, because they think like Stoicism is like a stern taskmaster,
yes.
Like it's harsh. It's like, get up, like stop whining or something. Mm-hmm. But the idea of like, well, I mean, I think friends do hold you accountable and they do push you and they don't let you do certain things, but they're also like visiting you in jail.
Yeah.
So it's both. It's got to be both. It can't just be the whip.
And it especially needs to be both if your default setting is the whip.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Right. I do think that's important. A lot of people will interpret Stoicism as just the harsh stuff.
Right.
And, that's just the stuff they were writing about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just what they needed, but it might not be exactly what you need.
When you first discovered it, were you most attracted to the side that was the whip or the kind part?
Oh, the whip, for sure. I was into there's a famous passage that opens book 5 where he's like, it's early and you're having trouble getting out of bed. It's like, and he has this conversation with himself. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was into that. I think that's why a lot of young men are drawn towards it. Mm-hmm. I think people wrongly assume that my audience is all men. And it's actually like pretty split, especially now that, like women graduate from college at higher rates than men. They're more successful in the workplace than men in many cases. So I think, ultimately you get to the same place where it's like leadership, responsibility, stress. It's fucking hard. Mm-hmm. And I think Stoicism is a strategy that helps you with that. But I think people wrongly think that it's all like jocks and soldiers and stuff. And it's really not. But yeah, I think that's usually the way in. The way in is like productivity, self-improvement, resilience, toughness. And then the reason it's lasted for 2,000 years, though, is that there's a lot more to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sustainably well-rounded, right?
Yeah,
in
it would
that
have
way.
to be.
Yeah. It seems like your conversations with Rich are like enhancing your own like softness
Totally.
with yourself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think you should be getting bigger and wider and like I hate have you ever heard that expression like if you're not liberal when you're young, you have no heart, and if you're not conservative when you're older, you have no brain?
No.
It's an expression that dates back to like the 1800s, but it's been popular for a long time. And to me, that's like the saddest thing in the world. Again, not so much like, I don't think it means like Democrat, Republican so much as it means like you're supposed to get more cynical and hard-hearted as you go. That's what it's. And look, life should disabuse you of some of your naive, idealistic notions. Mm-hmm. But if anything, I think that's what Stoicism is. It's the fight not to lose the ideals in the face of a pretty shitty, dark world. Like sometimes people say Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is depressing. And it's like, we lived through a plague and most of his reign was spent at war. He buried half of his children. His wife was probably unfaithful. You know, he had health issues. It was a lot. Like if it was all, everything's awesome and good, that would be deranged. Like life is hard. Shit doesn't go the way you want it to go. To me, Stoicism is the idea that doesn't break you, but becoming like hard-hearted and emotionless and disconnected and indifferent to other people, that's just another form of breaking. Yeah. Like you let it break something in you.
Yes, and you don't have any resilience to like bounce back or see it differently or keep going. It's like a dead end, basically.
Yeah. Like, have you read The Road?
Yeah.
Like it's like carrying the fire. The fire is the goodness. That's what the kid is talking. Like the dad is like, I'll kill anyone that gets between me and my kid. And the kid's like, can we share our food with this guy? That's the fire. Mm-hmm. Is that the believing in people?
Do you find now like being like following Stoicism, being a Stoic is easy for you yourself?
It's easier than it was. Like I think I've gotten better at it, but no, I think it's really hard.
You think it's hard?
I think it's really hard. And I would say, I wouldn't say I am a Stoic. I'm someone who tries to be Stoic. Okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's an aspiration. All of the virtues are verbs and not nouns. It's not a thing that you are. It's a thing you're trying to do
constantly, which makes it your it's operative direction for everything you're doing.
And the fact that you have done it is not
right. It's not a fixed thing. It's a constant thing.
Yes, that
makes a lot of sense, and that's really nice because a lot of people. It's nice that it's not a credential.
Yes, it's not a degree that you got. Like the Stoics should be something you are reading,
right?
Not like a thing you read once.
You keep it by your bedside, and it's in your pocket.
That's right. And then I would say you need it most when things are hardest. So like you don't need a lot of Stoicism when you do. I mean, like, look, success has its own obstacles because it requires like Epictetus is a slave, Marcus Aurelius is an emperor. Who has it harder? Of course, you would rather not be a slave. That a slave has it extremely bad. But like, it's no walk in the park to have literally the weight of the world on your shoulders. Like, so success does require a certain amount of Stoicism because restraint and discipline and, temptation and all this. But Stoicism is hard when things are hard because now you actually have to do it when you don't want to.
Yeah. But it's easier than, I feel like it's like, it can become easier to like, in the same way that you're saying, like for an athlete, showing up to practice every day gets easier once you decide you're always showing up to practice.
True.
Like I do feel like you can commit to a way of approaching your life.
Yeah.
And it can get easier. if you just make that commitment. Like the overall, the big commitment. I get that in a moment it's hard, but to decide that you're committed to seeing the world fundamentally in a certain way feels easier to me. And I feel like that's why for people to slow down every once in a while and reevaluate their values and how they approach their life in a more broad sense is actually really helpful instead of being so prescriptive to the moment and saying, this is who I am, someone who generally approaches life like this.
Yes.
Is a path of lesser resistance. Yes.
Like all things, it compounds too. So the more you build the muscle, the more you do the thing. In some ways, the easier it becomes. But then you find yourself in very difficult situations or unexpected situations, and things never stay the same.
And then you return to it or you call rich, you know?
Exactly. Or both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, totally.
This episode is brought to you by Square. 10 Speed Coffee in Calabasas is my favorite coffee shop near where I live. It's the coffee, the snacks, the music they play, the vibe, the number of outlets they have where I can plug in my laptop and write my new book. It's so good, and they're expanding. They just opened a new location near my boyfriend's office in Frogtown. Every business has different goals. Square is the business platform that supports them all, from opening a new location to selling something new or just expanding their reach. Square is built for all types of businesses, from cafes like 10 Speed that grow enough to open a new location, to the specialty market that curates thousands of unique items, to your trusted stylist at your local hair salon. With Square's AI-powered analytics, clearer data and deeper insights are just a chat away, so you can make more confident business decisions, quickly and even when you're on the go. Go to square.com/go/mentor buffet to learn more about how your business can grow with Square. That's SQUARE.com/GO/mentor buffet. So we're very excited about Wisdom Takes Work, and it feels, it feels full of mentorship. It's very, very cool. And what I was wondering is, could we pick two kind of mentors in this book?
Well, Joan Didion is the best. When you came on my podcast, we sat at the Joan Didion table.
Yeah.
And she's from Sacramento, which I would have loved to have known that. Like nobody was like, hey, one of the greatest writers who ever lived came from this town that you desperately want to get out of. That would have been so helpful.
Yeah, just to feel like you were from
it was possible.
Right.
Which is, I think, like a really powerful thing that representation does. Like, and it's not always like, it's like people go like, there has to be women on television, people of color on television. Everyone should be like, you want to see people of all different types of things doing stuff. So you can be like, oh, I can do it too. Because we all relate to different people in different ways. But I talked about Joan Didion a lot in the book. She had this very stoic, badass thing. She was going through some stuff with her daughter, and her husband was going through health issues. And they were walking home one day, and he was like, I don't think I can do this. And she just looked at him in her very sort of Sacramentan, Western, like lowercase stoicism, and just said, you don't get a choice, which I love, right? Like that's most things in life, you don't get a choice. Like you have to deal with it. But the story I tell in the wisdom book is about her as a young girl. Her mother introduces her to like the habit of keeping a notebook, and she keeps one all of her life. And people tend to think that writers keep notebooks for professional reasons, which you do. You're always writing down ideas, and you're writing down quotes and things. Like all my books are products of, I do most of mine on note cards, and those become the little pieces of the books that I do. But she writes this brilliant essay called On Keeping a Notebook. And she says notebooks are good for all of those reasons. But the main thing, she says, is that it allows you to keep on nodding terms with who you used to be. And so the idea that your notebooks, your writing, is a way for you to kind of track your own progress. It's like when you're writing something down, even if it's a quote from someone else, even if you're just like screenshotting something on your phone, actually the phone is kind of operative there. It's like you're capturing something, but it's capturing you in this moment that's interesting. And like one of my favorite things when I go, like when I start a book, I've usually been taking note cards for many, many months, sometimes years. And then I go back through them as I start the book, and I go, why did I write this down? What did this mean to me? Who was the person, and what were they doing? and why were they writing in a crayon? Or, but it's this process of having an ongoing discussion with yourself is really, really valuable, because sometimes they're thoughts that you want to capture and preserve. And sometimes by writing them down, you're getting rid of them. Oh. This can be equally helpful. I talked about her a lot as a sort of a model. When we're talking about like moving, I mean, she moves to New York from Sacramento. People didn't do that. She makes her way as a writer, and almost no one she knew no one who had ever done that. And she made it to LA and then back to New York. But the idea that like you go out and you experience things, but if you're not capturing them, if you're not writing them down, if you're not recording them in some way, the vast majority of that wisdom or insight is fleeting. And that's like really a shame. In writing it down, even if you never look at it again, you made it more tangible just by writing it down. Mm-hmm.
Either way, whether you're throwing the thought away, you're moving on from it, or you're actually like doubling down on it, it's still a way to grow.
Yes.
Right? And it's still acknowledging what was, which is giving your life real meaning too.
One of the journals, I have this one, it's called a 1 line a day journal. And it's 1 line for 5 years every day. So you write one thing. And so the first year is cool. The second year is pretty cool. Third year is really cool. Fourth year is cool. I'm on my 9th year, so I've done 2. But you go, oh, this is what I was doing on June 23rd, 4 years ago. And I'm doing the same thing today. Yeah. Like, I didn't realize my life had this rhythm. Or you're like, oh, that was like a fucking rough time. And now things are good again. Or, no, I was exhausted then. And a year later, I'm equally exhausted. I got to make some changes, But that's what she's talking about. It's a way to look at who you were at some earlier period.
Yeah. And in any of those moments, that was the truth.
Yes.
And it's cool to like also honor that the truth changes.
Totally.
Or it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it can be either way. But it was true or felt like the thing in that moment.
Totally.
Is like pretty cool.
Yeah. And the priorities can change. So what you thought was awesome or was really important or was the main thing, sometimes it holds up, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. And what you're really doing is evolving the relationship with yourself, which is something that I think so many of us have such a weak relationship with ourselves because there's such a strong magnetism from the world to relate to other people through all the access we have. And so this is like a practice that seems even more important now that we have extra input from the world that is giving us more relating to them.
Sure.
And so it seems more and more important, not less and less important, to have that dialogue with yourself.
Yeah, it's a way to keep your bearings.
Yeah, and just have you be a character in your own story, because you can become like you can become almost like a facade that you don't realize you're not dense anymore if you haven't like built that conversation with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
that's exactly it.
Yeah, you could, right? I just imagine like a paper puppet going around the world if you're not filling yourself out with like, relating to you.
This is who I am. And I think there's also something about the repetition of like, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what's important. This is what I'm trying to do. And you just say it enough times that it becomes reaffirming.
And it's kind of that attitude that we talked about earlier about being someone who causes the chaos in the world. It's like, how are you going to be that if you don't even have 2 feet on the ground that are filled out by hardy legs that is a dialogue with yourself? Like it feels like the way to have like a presence in your life, which is a joyful way to live too, is that. Is there someone in Wisdom Takes Work that our audience may not know or wouldn't like find themselves getting to know without your wonderful book that you want to introduce them to, even if they've heard of them?
Well, Montaigne is one of my favorite philosophers, 1500, so 15th, 16th century. And he's just one of the most curious, open-minded, fascinating human beings who ever lived. He invents the term an essay, which just means to try. Like essays are the bane of our existence as students. But to him, inventing the medium, he was like, I'm going to try to figure out what I know. So similar to the journaling we were talking about, he's like, what do I know about this? What do I think about this? He just decides that unlike, most philosophers and artists and thinkers up till then, that he was going to explore himself. Like he was going to be his own muse. And maybe that seems self-indulgent, but like how many people know themselves? Like how many people would you say have even like a shred of self-awareness? So he's a fascinating character, and you have to place him in the times that he lived. So here you have this kind of open-minded, curious, experimental, weird, heterodox thinker in the midst of the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. So a time of religious persecution and violence and destruction, and also plagues and wars. And he, at some point in about his early 40s, he decides he's going to put away his law career. He's going to put aside politics. He's going to retreat to his library and just explore himself in the world. And he writes these famous essays, which influence Shakespeare and kings and much of the subsequent Western philosophy. But there's a beautiful biography that I've been raving about. I may have even given it to you when you were at the store. But Stefan Zweig is a great German novelist, or let's say European novelist in the middle 19th century, 20th century, who ends up fleeing the Nazis. Like the Nazis are burning his books in piles. And he's on the run, he's Jewish, and he discovers Montaigne, and he realizes, oh, Montaigne and I are the same. Like we're both turning away from the violence and the closed-mindedness and the certainty and the evil of our times. He says that what Montaigne teaches us is that our most important job is to remain human in inhuman times. And what a beautiful idea that is. Like to not let the cruelty of the world make you cruel, to not let it make you hard, to not let it break you down, to remain open-minded and curious and patient and excitable and fun. Yeah. That's like the task. And I think that was the task in the 15th century. That was the task in the 20th century. And it's definitely the task right now. So he's like a main character in the book. He has this fascinating kind of self-directed education at an early age that I think, has often been held up as an example for like how you teach kids. But just generally, he's like a model, I think, for the kind of thinker that we want to cultivate in ourselves and in other people. Mm-hmm. He's the best.
I can't wait for people to meet him. If you're enjoying Mentor Buffet, follow Voicing Change for more inspirational and truly life-affirming content from shows like Soul Boom, The Proof, Feel Better, Live More, and the Rich Roll podcast. Just go to voicingchange.media. That's voicingchange.media for a beautiful selection of productive and positive shows.